After the success of their initial singles, June 2001 saw the release of the second album, Origins of Symmetry. By this time, their knowledge of equipment and stagecraft had expanded, with their shows getting wilder and more ambitious.
Chris used Marshall stuff. He started getting on really well with Marshall stuff. They did this series called VBA, which was like a valve bass amp, but it wasn't valve, it was transistor and valve mixed together, except for he always had it wound round with a transistor, right? But then he also had a transistor amp next to it, which he used to put all his affected sounds through. So he had two splits. So basically, like you had a really sort of like solid bassy type sound, but then any distortion and stuff was layered on top of it, so it kept all the oomph. He used to use bass collection, basses, generally, and Badula as well was the other company he used. He had several different sources for bass, you know what I mean? He wasn't just a straight bass player. We had double bass, we had bass pedals. I got them into samplers and sampling because I saw it as being a cheaper way to, basically, not a cheaper way, but it was like kind of, we were hiring a piece of equipment from a company that the amount we were paying to hire it each day, like after a while they would have paid for a sampler, which would then enable them to expand that further, you know, and be able to have other sounds going on, you know, and it opened up, you know, they started having different tracks that they brought into the set because they'd used bass pedals on them in the recordings, you know, and they wanted to create these like sub-harmonics within the bass and like, you know, these sort of sub-synth sounds. And so, you know, you kind of like, I sort of got them into that side of things.
And Chris used to blow up bass amps all the time. He was very picky about which bass amp he wanted. If he didn't have the right amp, then there was trouble on tour. There was a famous occasion, I'm pretty sure it was Greece, where Chris blew up 2 amps in 5 minutes. I mean, rock and roll.
Bass guitars going through bass drums, not through the front skin either. Right. I think that was in Germany, in a festival in Germany, and they'd gone on one of their trashing kind of like sessions, and we had a specific bass that Chris used to use for the trashing, like, you know, and it actually had broken scratched into it.
Well, Muse are pretty famous for their kit abuse. They damage a lot of equipment. They sacrifice a lot of gear. It's a wonder they're still alive in some ways.
And I think Matt had a guitar that he had total respect for because he couldn't break it. Like, you know, it had so much gaffer tape on it. It had been repaired so many times that, you know, and he'd thrown it so high into the air so many times, and yet every time it had come back and it had lived. Right, that he gained respect for it, you know, through its own batterings.
I can just imagine the road manager calling up for insurance. Hello, it's the road manager for Muse here. Can you quote me happy?
Dom used to use Tama, you know, Tama drums was like, which is something I ended up setting up a deal with them just after we started working with them, and they sorted him out a Tama drum kit. I remember Dom went to tip the kick drum on its side as he was sort of throwing it off the riser, and Chris launched the bass at the same time, and the bass had a pointy headstock and it just punctured straight through the shell of the bass drum, right, you know, therefore rendering the bass drum completely useless. Another time a cymbal sliced through the floor tom, right, just took the whole side of the floor tom out, right, where the cymbal got thrown back at the drum kit and it just cut into it. Right. Matt used a right array of stuff over the period I did. First turn up, I remember him having 4 different guitar amps. And he used to just turn them all on and off, and it was quite complex.
Matt loves his amazing sounds and amazing noises that he manages to produce. I mean, to that end, he carts around a wall of different guitar amps. And indeed, generally, any Muse concert resembles an electronics laboratory. I mean, there's knob twiddling, there are soldering irons, there are leads, patch bays, endless things going on to get the sound right.
One day he suddenly dropped all of them and went down to 1 amp, and found that he got better sound out of it because he suddenly worked out how to sort of channel all the sounds into one amp and create the same sort of like monumental noise, but you know, kind of rather than it sounding like a muddy mess, it was much more defined and and I mean both sides of the sound had their own individual characteristics, which were, you know, phenomenal for the periods they were in at the time. But you know, at the same time, like he had, you know, he kind of like found, you know, by simplifying things became easier. You know, I remember getting him into MIDI a little bit. You know, like kind of started to show him the things MIDI could do, like by just triggering other keyboards. Like, you know, I'd be like, right, you know, you can do this by pressing this button. You've now got this ready. Like by selecting this sound, that bit of the equipment's ready as well. And you know, that used to, you know, those kind of things really amazed him. Saw him put a guitar through every speaker of a cab once, and then he wanted to take it into the studio to record it because he thought like it'd sound great. Until we told him it wouldn't make a noise anymore. Right, you know, if he'd left one speaker in it, it might have made a noise, but you know, the fact that he hadn't left any speakers in it meant it would not have made a noise anymore. It was just like.
In 2002, after mixed reviews about the second album, Muse were nominated for the Best British Band Award, voted by the readers of Kerrang! Magazine.
What do you say? Yeah, well, cheers to the readers, you know, and this is kind of cool, I guess, you know. We've been told we can't say the word Kerrang! For advertising readers. Kerrang! Great magazine, Kerrang! Great magazine. There you go. What's the big deal? Why can't we say that? I don't understand. What's all that about? It's a cool mag, though, isn't it? But I guess, you know, playing live is kind of the most important thing for being in any band. So, cheers. Thank you to the voters. See you later.
They won the award, beating Ash and Fidel.
I think it could be, because I think we try and put all of our personal feelings and all of our, you know, everything we've experienced our life into the music, do you know what I mean, and get all our systems on stage, and it kind of leaves us a little bit sort of chilled out as people when we're not on stage. But I think we're getting all out of our system right there, you know.
I first heard of them through some friends who had been going on about them, and I actually completely ignored them because they said that they sounded a lot like Radiohead.
For God's sake, do not mention the R word.
I mean, they took a lot of slating about being a second-rate Radiohead and this, that and the other, you know what I mean? Like, and they weren't, they never were, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know, okay, the guy's got a full set of voice. Jeff Buckley is someone else that, like, you know, he probably got compared to all the time because he could do that range thing, you know, and he could drop from a low, you know, he could go from a low note to a high note without even thinking about it.
So I was like, oh, another Radiohead band, you know, which was, you know, my loss because they were going to see them and they were always like, oh, you know, we're going to go see Muse tonight, and all I could think of was, it's the Radiohead band, I'm not bothering with that. And then it wasn't until sort of about a year after the first album came out and there was all the, you know, quite a big fuss, that I just thought, well, how bad can it be? And I took it home. I bought it at HMV, and I took it home and put in the CD player, first track. Before it even finished, I ran back down the road to, like, you know, just like get all the other stuff. It's one of those moments, you know, when you hear a band and it can just like change life like that. And that was one of those moments.
To be honest, to me, they never sounded anything like Radiohead. I think it's lazy rock journalists. It's definitely not the music, so I don't know what it is. Is it Matt's spiky hair or something?
In 2002, Muse took part in a second world tour promoting Origins of Symmetry and a DVD called Hullabaloo. The tour included the Reading Festival, and shortly after they started thinking about creating a third album.
We're going to spend at least 2 months when we finish Reading doing that, just rehearsing and playing together, playing the songs, and then we'll probably get in the studio sort of November time, something like that. I think it's quite uplifting, a lot of the new stuff, more uplifting. It's not so angsty, I don't think. I think it's more like something, maybe it's a bit more personal as well. I think my personal life's changed a lot, and our personal lives have changed a lot. We've all grown up quite a lot, so I think for that reason the music's of a more personal, more uplifting nature. Because we had kids, I've fallen in love, and Dom's still doing lines of coke off models' tits, but apart from that, I think our personal lives have all kind of gone somewhere, do you know what I mean?
Did you have to say it?
With the release of the live DVD and CD Hullabaloo on its way, Matt and Dom both moved back to Islington with respective girlfriends and started to think about the third album, Absolution.